The colonial rule in India, that is the chapter we are covering today, and here we will do the textual question answer, right? So let us start. So the first question is, what is colonialism? Give three different definitions based on the chapter or on your own knowledge. So general historical definition of colonialism is the practice by which a powerful country established control over a weaker territory, often by settling its own population there and exploiting the area's resources for economic and political gain. So this is a general historical definition of colonialism. Political or power perspective point of view, the definition is colonialism is a system of domination where one nation exerts political, economic, and cultural control over another territory, often justified by ideas of racial superiority or civilizing mission. Right? So this is the second. Third definition is, that is post-colonial theory definition. Colonialism refers to the ideological and cultural imposition by colonizers on colonized societies, which not only attempt to reshape the identity, language, education, and worldview of the native population. Now, question number 2 is, colonial rulers often claim that their mission was to civilize the people they rule. Based on the evidence in this chapter, do you think this was true in the case of India? Why or why not? So, no, it was mostly a justification for control and exploitation. British policies ruined the Indian industries and drained wealth to Britain, that is economic exploitation they have done. Western education was introduced to create loyal clerks, not to empower Indians, that is education for control. Some harmful practices were banned, but reforms served British interests. Selective social reforms were there. However, you can elaborate this point in your own word also. Indians were treated as inferior and excluded from high position, that is racial discrimination was there, and the British civilizing mission was largely a cover for colonial exploitation, not genuine development. Next question is, how was the British approach to colonizing India different from earlier European powers like the Portuguese or the French? So, scale and duration of control. British established widespread long-term political control over most of India, while Portuguese and French controlled small coastal areas, example Goa for Portugal and Pondicherry for France. Administration and governance. British set up a centralized administration, legal system, police, civil services and taxation. Whereas Portuguese or French had less organized administration, focused more on trade and religion. Military strategy. British used a combination of military power and alliances with Indian rulers, whereas Portuguese and French were mostly involved in trading and occasional conflicts but could not dominate military on large scale. Economic exploitation. British created a system to drain wealth from India. However, Portuguese and French mainly interested in spice trade and port-based commerce, not full economic control. Culture and religious influence. British promoted English education, laws and administration. Portuguese strong focus on religious conversion to Christianity. French had limited cultural impact. They maintained more flexible relation with locals. Okay, actually this is Portuguese strong focus on religious, that is the conversion to Christianity, right? Whereas the French had limited cultural impact and they maintained more flexible relation with locals. Now, Indians funded their own subjugation. What does this mean in the context of British infrastructure project in India like the railway and telegraph network? So, paid with Indian money, these projects were funded by high taxes collected from Indians, built for British interest. Railways were mainly used to move British troops, transport raw materials from Indian villages to ports. Telegraph helped the British to crush revolt, that is the 1857, and maintain tight control over administration. Little benefits to Indian. Infrastructure was not designed to help Indian farmers, traders or common people. Most Indians could not even afford railway travel or access telegraph services. What does phrase divide and rule mean? Give example how this was used by the British in India. Divide and rule is a political strategy where a ruler intentionally creates division among the people based on religion, caste, region, etc., so that they cannot unite and challenge the ruler's power. So, give example how this was used by the British in India. That is, the first is the Hindu-Muslim division. The British encouraged religious differences between Hindus and Muslims. In 1909, the Morley Minto reform introduced separate electorate for Muslim, meaning they could only vote for Muslim candidate. This increased suspicion between communities and weakened national unity. Partition of Bengal is another example. British split Bengal into Hindu majority west and Muslim majority east, claiming administrative reason. In reality, it was to break the growing unity in the nationalist movement. Choose one area of Indian life such as agriculture, education, trade or village life. How was it affected by colonial rule? And just express your ideas through a short essay. Can you find any sign of these changes still with us today? So I have chosen education. Let us see. So introduce of Western style education. English became the medium of instruction, especially after Macaulay Minor, that is 1835. Focus shifted to literature, science and law instead of traditional Indian subjects like the philosophy or astronomy or Sanskrit. Creation of a class of educated Indian. So the aim was to produce Indians who were Indian in blood but English in taste, useful for low-level administrative jobs. Neglect of mass education. Education was limited to urban elites. Most Indians, especially rural people and women, remained uneducated. Establishment of school and universities. Institutions like Calcutta University, Bombay University and Madras University were set up in 1857. Sign of these changes is still visible today. So, English remained a key language in Indian education and government. Okay. The exam-based textbook heavy system still reflect colonial models, and preference for jobs like clerks, civil servants still continue a mindset shaped during colonial time. Now imagine you are a reporter in 1857 and write a brief note on Rani Lakshmibai resistance at Jhansi, right? And if possible, try to add a timeline also. So I have added that one also. So here the Jhansi rebellion, the fierce resistance of Rani Lakshmibai. So this is the title by a correspondent, Jhansi 1857. Okay. So Jhansi Bundelkhand, September 1857. So we are writing now. That's why September 1857, right? The month is September. So amid the flames of rebellion that have engulfed our great Indian land, the brave Rani of Jhansi, Lakshmibai, has risen as a symbol of valor and resistance. Her gallant stand against British rule has become the talk of town and courts alike, earning her the reverend title of Jhansi Ki Rani. Now the timeline of the rebellion in Jhansi, June 1857, the spark was there. The fire of revolt were lit in Meerut in May, and by June, unrest reached Jhansi. Sepoys stationed in the city rebelled against the British officers and the fort of Jhansi fell into rebel hand. Okay, so this is the news. June to September 1857, Rani Lakshmibai assumed control. With no British authority left, Rani Lakshmibai took charge to restore order. Though initially accused by the British of complicity in the mutiny, she denied involvement and governed Jhansi justly in interim. March 1857, the siege of Jhansi began. General Hugh Ross marched towards Jhansi with East India Company troops, and the Rani, refusing to surrender, vowed to defend her kingdom. Fierce fighting broke out as British force laid siege to Jhansi fort. April 1858, Jhansi falls, Rani escaped. So after a week of battle, the British stormed Jhansi on April 3rd, and the Rani with her infant son strapped to her back escaped under the cover of night and fled to Kalpi, joining forces with rebel leaders Tatya Tope and Rao Sahib. May-June 1858, the final resistance. From Kalpi, she regrouped and rode to Gwalior, where she captured the fort and declared it free of British rule. However, General Ross again advanced. June 1858, the Rani falls in battle. On the battleground of Kota Ki Serai near Gwalior, the Rani fought with unmatched bravery, clad in warriors' attire, and she was mortally wounded and died fighting a true martyr of freedom. Okay, so this is the news, the timeline. Now, the key leaders and the allies: Rani Lakshmibai, Queen of Jhansi, leader of rebellion in Bundelkhand; Tatya Tope, skilled military commander and strategist; Rao Sahib, nephew of Nana Sahib, aided in the fight at Kalpi and Gwalior. General Hug Rose was the commander of the British Central India Field Force. So though the rebellion in Jhansi has been quelled, the legend of Rani Lakshmibai lives on. Her courage, leadership and sacrifice have lit a flame that shall not be easily extinguished. So this is the news, right? Now, again question number 8. Imagine an alternative history where India was never colonized by European power and write a short story about 300 words, okay? So title is the Monsoon Confidence. So in an alternate 2025, India had just imaginary story is there and it is a history. India had never been colonized, no British Raj, no broken economy, no partition. Instead, a confederation of kingdom like the Marathas, Tamil, Sikh, Assamese and others had grown through trade, dialogue and self-rule. The capital Patliputra was a city of glass and ancient stone where quantum labs stood beside temples and Sanskrit verses adored modern AI interfaces. Inside the Akhand Sabha hall, delegates gather for annual monsoon conference. Meera Verma, a young engineer from the Saraswati Institute of Quantum Science, addressed the hall. Our chakra-based turbine, inspired by ancient Vedic geometry, now power half the confederation. We invite the world to collaborate, not compete. A diplomat from East Africa smiled, your turbines echo our ancestral water drums. Let's build something together. Outside the Ganga flowed clean, children played beneath neem trees while street poets rapped in Urdu and Tamil. No foreign flag had ever flown over the Red Fort, languages were equal, cultures intact. Mughal minarets stood beside Buddhist stupas, not erased but embraced. A granite plaque in the courtyard simmered in the rain, and Dharma is not dominance, it is a balance. It was written there. As the first drop of monsoon rain fell, Meera looked skyward. Behind her stood 1,000 years of unbroken growth, ahead only possibilities. Okay, so this is a alternate history where India was never colonized by European people. Now there is a role play between Dadaji Bhai Naroji and a British official, okay, and they are discussing about the British colonial rule in India. British official Mr. Naroji, Mr. Naroji, surely you must agree that British rule has brought civilization, railways and education to India. Dada Bhai Naroji, and yet millions of Indians remain in poverty. Your so-called benefits are overshadowed by the constant drain of our wealth to Britain. Mr. Drain? We govern India, maintain peace and build infrastructure. Dadabhai Naroji, at India's expense. Our industries are destroyed, our taxes fund British wars and our people starve while British officials grow rich. Mr. But Indians are part of the empire. Now, progress take time. Naroji. True progress begins when Indians govern themselves. We ask not for charity, only for justice. So this is a small role play. Now explore a local resistance movement, tribal, peasant or princely from your state or region during the colonial period. So we will take coal uprising 1831-32. It is the place was Chota Nagpur Plateau, that is present day Jharkhand. The tribes involved mainly coal tribes including Oran or Mundas. Special trigger was influx of moneylender, landlords and British revenue policies. Traditional systems were being destroyed. The leader were Buddhu Bhagat and other tribal leaders. Their demand was to end outsider exploitation, restore tribal land and traditional governance. British response was there, brutally suppressed the revolt, Buddha Bhagat was executed. And what is the legacy today? That is the memorial statue in Jharkhand. Festival Buddha Bhagat Mardram is celebrated. And songs, tribal folk song recount the uprising. Now here are a few questions from the Let's Explore also. Let us see. Textual question has been done, right? What do you think Dadabhai Naroji means by un-British rule in India? So Dadabhai Naroji used the term un-British rule in India to describe how the British were ruling India unfairly and against their own principles of justice and good governance. He believed British rule in India was exploitive, oppressive and draining India's wealth, which went against the values that Britain claimed to stand for. Do you understand all the terms used above the list and describe the Indian textile? That is page number 100. So indigenous industries, industries that originate and develop locally within a country or region using local resources, skills, labor and traditional knowledge. Textile, A type of material made by weaving, knitting or bonding fibers like the bag, carpets or the cloth. Intricate design, a very detailed and complex pattern or artwork. Texture, to feel appearance or surface quality of something either by touch or sight. And then ultra thin muslin is also used. It refers to a type of muslin fabric that is extremely light, fine and sheer. Next, tariff is also used. A tariff is a tax or duty that a government places on goods imported into or something exported from a country. Now, what is meant by the sun never set on British Empire? Do you think this was a correct statement? This phrase was popular saying during the height of the British Empire, especially in the 19th and the early 20th century. It refers to the global presence of the British Empire. From the British perspective, it was a source of pride, but from a critical or modern perspective, it masked the reality of colonialism, including exploitation, racism, cultural erasure, and violence. Indigo is a natural deep blue pigment used in dyeing. Can you think of some other natural substance that have been traditionally used in India to dye cloth? So, turmeric, haldi is there, that is bright yellow color. Root of the turmeric plant, commonly used for cotton fabric, known for its antibacterial properties. Marigold flowers, yellow to orange. Petals of marigold flower used often in festive or decorative textile can produce varying shades depending on mordants. Walnut hills, that is brown outer shell of the walnut fruit, it produces earthy brown color, sometimes also used in hair dye. Now, why do you think was the term Sepoy Mutiny rejected after Indian independence? Write one paragraph explaining your reason. So, reason for rejection of the term Sepoy Mutiny. The term was coined by the British to downplay the uprising and present it as a mere act of disobedience by a small group of soldiers rather than a larger rebellion. The uprising of 1857 involved not only sepoy but also peasants, landlords, kings and common people from various regions of India, making it much more than a military mutiny. Calling it a mutiny insulted the sacrifice and bravery of those who fought and died in the revolt. Rejecting the term helped honor their role in India's freedom struggle. And post-independence, the event is more commonly referred to as the First War of Independence, reflecting its broader scope and importance in Indian history. That's why the term Sepoy Mutiny was rejected. Next is, in the sentence, it opened or reopened India to the world and the world to India. Why do you think we added reopen? That is a colonial power. The term reopen is used because India was already connected to the world through trade, culture and knowledge long before colonial rule. Colonialism renewed this connection but in a new way and often for the benefit of the colonizers. And the last, some argue that stolen cultural heritage has been better preserved abroad than it would have been in India. What is your view on its repatriation? So, stolen cultural heritage may have been preserved abroad, but it still belongs to India. Repatriation is important to restore cultural ownership and historical justice. Preservation cannot justify keeping what was taken without consent, right? So, this is the textual question, and let's explore question answer from the topic the colonial era of India. And I hope these answer questions are going to help you some way. So if you are watching, then thank you for watching until the end, and this much for this video.